You know you're in trouble when the welcoming committee is 7 feet tall, covered in fur, and calls you mate candidate before you've even put your bag down. I didn't even say hello. Just blinked up at her as she sniffed me like I was her next protein bar. You're smaller than I expected, she said, voice like gravel and velvet mixed. Good. More agile. I'm just here to do medical checkups, I replied, adjusting my glasses. I don't do combat trials or whatever this is. Her tail slapped the dirt behind me, sealing off my retreat. Trial begins now. Before I could object, she tossed me a crude spear made of bone and heat-welded alloy. I dropped it instantly. She grinned like she liked that. First mating test. Heat trench endurance. That sounds like either a torture chamber or a honeymoon suite, I muttered. She pounced past me, leaving me to stumble after her through steam-thick jungle. We reached a jagged canyon filled with bubbling sludge and heat vapors. She pointed at it like it was a luxurious spa. In you go. Into the bubbling, lava soup. Trial measures pain tolerance, skin sensitivity, and pheromone control. You must remain until I say stop. You're joking. She stepped in without hesitation. The sludge hissed, then shimmered. She reclined back like it was bathwater. Come, male. You delay, you fail. I waded in. Immediate regret. It wasn't boiling, but the slime stung every cut and pore. She floated effortlessly, eyes half-lidded. I sank like a rock and gasped. She rolled over and suddenly straddled me, tail curling under my knees. You tremble. Very sensitive. But you have a pleasing scent. I think that's panic sweat. Delicious. I tried to sit up. She pressed me back down, claws lightly grazing my chest. Focus your breath. Or black out. Both options test different attributes. I blacked out. When I came to, I was lying on a vine mat, wrapped in pelts. She was crouched nearby, munching on something that looked like a roasted lizard rib. You failed. But amusingly. You drugged me. You lost consciousness during ritual bonding. Unworthy males do not remain conscious. How often do you find a male that stays awake? None so far. But they scream well. I tried to stand. Her tail lifted to stop me, pressing into my abdomen. Test 2. Flexibility. Didn't you just say I failed? Next test always begins when male regains mobility. She dragged me upright. I yelped as her claws wrapped around my wrists and yanked them behind my back. You are now bound to me. The goal: match my movements in the rhythm chamber. Is this a combat drill or a mating dance? Yes. We stepped into a clearing full of pounding drums, automated by old tech, sync-to-pulse beats. She pressed her back against mine, then bent over and yanked me with her. Synchronize. I can barely breathe. Test your core. Match my sway. She began to move, slow rolling, hips grinding in time with the drums. I awkwardly mirrored her. Every time I lagged behind or moved off rhythm, her tail flicked my thigh. You lag. You stiffen at the wrong time. Very inefficient. You're distracting. Good. A true mate must focus through distraction. Now faster. The rhythm picked up. I tried. Failed. She arched suddenly and flipped me over her back. I landed in the moss, winded. Failure confirmed. But your struggles excite the ground. I groaned. Do any of these end in success? She sniffed and turned, walking away with a flick of her hips. Next test begins at moonrise. I collapsed, wondering what I'd gotten myself into. A few minutes passed before she returned and tossed a sticky fruit into my lap. Recovery meal. It boosts endurance and promotes scent production. I'm not even gonna ask what that means. It makes you smell ripe. Good for closeness. Why would I want to smell ripe? So my instincts can test you more accurately. I smell like regret. She leaned in, nose at my neck, inhaling. Regret smells like cinnamon on you. I flinched. Could you not? Why? Are you already aroused? Definitely not. Definitely confused. Same thing. For humans. She walked off again. I stayed seated, trying to process what I'd just survived. Her voice called out from the trees. Tonight, breath test. You must survive 10 shared exhales. Is that a euphemism or a threat? Yes. I lay back in the moss, arms splayed. The sun was still up and I was already exhausted. She never lets me win. I'm starting to think that's the point. There was no break. As soon as the sun dipped, she returned with that same glint in her eye and a thick leather strap in one hand. Ready for your breath control test? Define ready, I said, sitting up slowly. She clicked the strap around my waist, then did the same to herself, binding us chest to back. I was suddenly flush against her furnace of a body, ribs to spine. You're very warm, I muttered. It's a sign you're failing already. Cool minds endure. Hot bodies distract. You put me here. She tilted her head. Test begins. No struggling. She led me into a thick, misty chamber carved from stone. The air was damp with something sharp and sweet. She inhaled deeply, then exhaled into the fog. You must match breath cycles. 10 counts. If our timing breaks, test resets. And what happens if I pass? Hasn't occurred yet. She turned her face close to mine. I felt her breath first, slow, humid, impossibly steady. I tried to match it, but her scent hit me like a dart, feral, thick, somewhere between wildflowers and lightning. I coughed. Failure. Too fast. She licked her lips. Reset. We began again. She exhaled, long and low, then whispered, Release tension. Or I will release it for you. That's threatening. Motivational. This time I lasted 4 counts before my focus cracked. Her tail slithered around my thigh mid-breath. I gasped. Again. You're doing that on purpose. You're very responsive. It's my job to test every variable. I think the variable is called sabotage. She didn't answer, just leaned her head to the side, hair brushing my neck, and exhaled again. Her chest rose and fell against my back like waves. I gritted my teeth and matched her for 6, then 9, then I sneezed. Failure. Restart. You've got to be kidding me. Her claws grazed my side. Your lungs are delicate. I admire that. Please don't admire me while I'm strapped to you. Her response was to brush her tail under my belt. I buckled forward. Definitely not regulation. I wheezed. You show promise. But you lack discipline. I'm just trying to breathe. She finally unstrapped us and stepped away, chest heaving slightly. Still, you've improved. That was improvement. You only failed 9 times instead of 12. I staggered out of the chamber, dripping with fog and shame. She followed, licking the condensation from her forearm. Next test. Sensory control. I have no control left. Perfect. Makes it easier to identify your thresholds. I was pushed gently against a warm slab of stone. She stepped in front of me, holding what looked like a brush carved from alien fibers. You must remain still while I stimulate non-lethal nerve clusters. Do not flinch. Wait, define stimulate. She pressed the brush under my jaw and dragged it slowly along my neck. My spine stiffened. Already flinching. You're brushing me like a cat. I am gauging your pleasure reflexes. I don't have those. She brushed lower, across my chest. My legs twitched. You lied. That's just involuntary. Exactly the point. She circled around and brushed behind my ear, along my shoulder blades, then, tail curl again. I jerked. Disqualified. This test is rigged. All tests are. The point is to observe how you fail. I sagged. You enjoy this. Of course. Your failure is foreplay. I didn't have an answer for that. Mostly because her tail was still draped across my waist. You keep touching me with that thing. You've yet to ask me not to. I looked down at myself. My body was clearly losing the battle. She grinned. Ah. Core heat rising. I'm going to die here, aren't I? If you die during mating trials, you're honored with a statue. That's not comforting. She leaned forward. Do you want me to stop testing you? I hesitated. She smelled like danger and victory. No. I want to pass one. Her smile turned savage. Then brace for the next. She spun and walked off into the brush. I stood there for a moment, trying to calm every nerve she'd set on fire. There was no point. She'd already won again. I just hadn't figured out which part of me she was keeping this time. Ask ChatGPT. I found her sharpening her claws with a broken blade, humming to herself like she hadn't just melted my dignity over the last 12 hours. You're late, she said without looking. I needed a break from being humiliated. You're improving. Now you understand your limits. I don't think I have any left. She stood and tossed the blade aside. Perfect. Time for emotional resonance evaluation. That sounds like therapy with claws. You must open your core and bare your memory scars. Honesty is the trial. Resistance is failure. And what happens if I tell the truth? Then I'll know what part of you to break next. I wasn't sure if she was joking. I wasn't sure I cared anymore. She motioned me to sit across from her, close enough that our knees touched. The ground was drawn with a chalky ring filled with pungent mist, burned from something she called centroot. This compound releases memory triggers. You will speak the first shame that rises. I have to do this, or you'll remain in bonded. And testing will escalate. I've already seen God during the breath test. Then God approves. She took a slow breath. I will begin. Her eyes unfocused. I once chose a male who begged for my affection, but feared my skin. He wanted softness but not strength. When I showed him hunger, he ran. I buried the hunger with it. I stared. That was more than I expected. She looked away just slightly. Your turn. I coughed. I once cried during sex because I thought a woman said I love you. She actually said move over. The Akala blinked, then snorted. Then growled. Then laughed. That is pitiful. Thanks. Pitiful is better than fake. You passed. Wait, what? You gave shame honestly. First test cleared. I blinked. That's what it took. Your emotional nudity was adequate. Now, tail reflex trial. Oh, come on. You must maintain eye contact while I brush you with my tail. Flinching, twitching, or vocalizing is failure. She stepped behind me, and I heard the soft hiss of her tail coiling. You ready? She asked. No. Excellent. It started with a flick across my collarbone. I bit my lip. Another glide down my spine. I clenched my fists. Then the tail slid slowly across the inside of my thigh. I gasped. Failure. Too fast. You moaned. No, I didn't. Your throat betrayed you. Again. She restarted without waiting. This time she brushed my sides, my chest, even the tops of my hands. I was frozen, sweating, locked into her golden gaze. You're doing well, she said softly. Almost like you want to win now. I just wanted to stop. She grinned. Liar. Tail across my neck. I shivered. Fail. You didn't even wait. You flinched. And your pupils dilated. Your body answers before your words. This is rigged. I told you it was. From the beginning. Then what am I doing here? You keep showing up. I stood. You could let me pass. Then what excuse would I have to keep testing you? We stared at each other. Her tail curled idly around her ankle. Mine was twitching invisibly from frustration. I'm not just some entertainment, I muttered. She stepped closer. You are. But also more. You last longer than most. You argue. You resist. That's desirable. You could just say you like me. That's not how my species does things. What, you dominate, humiliate, and tie people up instead? Only the ones we don't want to lose. The silence was thick. I didn't move. Neither did she. Then she said low. Final test approaches. It is the primal trust fall. Great. That sounds like a real thing and not something you made up 5 minutes ago. You will fall blind. If I catch you, bonding proceeds. If I do not, the testing ends. I stared. So, you get to decide whether this ends? Yes. But not alone. You fall. I choose. But your willingness matters. That sounds an awful lot like affection. She stepped back into the shadows, but her voice lingered. You're not failing anymore. You're just making me choose slower. And then she was gone, leaving me alone with the weight of what felt suspiciously like victory in disguise. She waited for me in the center of the outpost's silent arena, lit only by the violet glow of the gas moon overhead. Her arms were folded, tail still, face unreadable for the first time. The usual smirk was gone. It made me nervous. You came, she said flatly. You gave me no option. You could have run. You'd chase me. That's the point. I stepped closer, watching her. So this is the last one? The final mating test. Primal trust fall. If you pass, we proceed to resonance binding. And if I fail? You walk away. Unclaimed. Unremembered. Sounds like you're giving me a real choice for once. Her eyes flashed. You've always had a choice. You just didn't want it. She produced a thick blindfold. I stared at it, hesitated, then took it. Tied it on. My heartbeat outpaced everything else. Face away. Close to the edge. I turned, facing nothing but cold wind and silence. No prompts, she said. Just fall. I stood still for a long moment. I could hear her breathing somewhere behind me, steady and deep. I thought about every time she shoved me, pinned me, teased me, humiliated me, and somehow kept me coming back. Thought about her tail slipping around my wrist like it belonged there. Thought about how every failure she gave me felt like a rope she was tying slowly around both of us. I fell. Not a dive, not a stumble. A clean, willing drop backwards into nothing. Air rushed past me. Then everything stopped. Arms caught me. Strong. Hot. Unshaking. She held me there, suspended like a weightless thing. No words at first. Just breath. Hers was shallow now. I didn't expect you to do it, she said quietly. You dared me. I had to. She slowly let me down, one hand still gripping my shirt like she didn't trust herself to release it. You've passed. I pulled the blindfold off. She was staring at me like I was something new. Something rare. So, now what? She pressed her forehead to mine. Now comes the resonance. Is that code? No. It's everything. Physical, mental, scent, pulse, need. I have to test it. All of it. All at once. I laughed under my breath. Of course you do. She stepped back half a pace, then dropped to one knee. Her claws gripped my belt. Wait, are you proposing? She growled. Don't ruin it. Sorry. Her arms pulled me against her body, full contact, hot skin to sweat-soaked uniform. She sniffed the base of my throat. Her voice dropped. Your scent. It's perfect. Finally. Does that mean I've changed? No, she whispered. You're just no longer resisting. That makes all the difference. Her tail wrapped tight around my waist. She pushed me down onto the pelt-covered earth like I weighed nothing. Her teeth brushed my collarbone, then paused. This is where you can say no. I've passed enough tests, I whispered. Do your worst. Her smile came back, slow and deep. No. This time, I do my best. I didn't sleep that night. Neither did she. The outpost lights flickered more than once. Walls shook. I think something exploded outside. Didn't care. Hours later, I lay there, half-conscious, completely wrecked in every way a body could be wrecked by another. She curled beside me, one claw idly trailing my chest. You failed half the tests on purpose, didn't you? I failed all of them on accident. She shook her head. No. You failed charmingly. You failed in ways I couldn't ignore. Is that why you kept testing me? No. I kept testing you because I was afraid you'd stop letting me. I stared at the sky, unsure whether I wanted to laugh or cry. So what now? She curled against me, tail possessively draped over my hip. Now I stop calling them tests. And start calling them habits. You're serious. Completely. You're going to wake me up at midnight just to brush me with your tail again, aren't you? Absolutely. And if I flinch? You'll still be mine. But I'll mark it down as a failure, just to keep you humble. I grinned, eyes closing. You never let me win. She whispered into my ear, low and sharp. Because you never needed to. I already chose you.